Hit the wrong button there. Well, good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Josh with Digital Hammurabi. Apologize for having my glasses on. There's going to be a bit of a glare. It's been quite a hectic late afternoon, early evening, but we are here. We are back. Sorry about the delay. We were out at dinner with my family, and things were a little slow. Anyway, it's good to be here and good to be back doing another book club, which I'm excited about this one. We're going to do some apocalyptic literature, so that should be fun. Megan is putting Oliver to bed, so she will be here shortly, and hopefully she will be bringing coffee and tea. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time or don't know what these book clubs are, we go through usually Mesopotamian literature, so Akkadian, Sumerian literary texts, and we read through them because they're not often as well known, perhaps, as some of the Greek texts or even biblical texts. However, tonight so we've been doing this series on Daniel, on the book of Daniel, particularly looking at the dating of the book of Daniel. And that, of course, ties us into apocalyptic literature. And so I thought it would be a good idea, as we finish up the Dating of Daniel series and move into what will be we're going to do an apocalyptic video as well, or following this. I thought it would be a good idea to maybe go ahead and start to read some apocalyptic literature, so that you can become more acquainted with the genre, and it will make sense as we go through those texts in the video or videos that we do in the future. I should not ever be in charge of doing openings or of talking by myself, because this is really bad. So while we're waiting for Megan, what I'm going to do is give a brief introduction to what apocalyptic literature is. By the way, I have the side chat open, although it's difficult for me to see it. So if I don't see you or see a tag or something, I apologize. Megan will be here, and when she's here, she's much more adept at seeing those things. So what is apocalyptic literature? Well, I have my notes. I just went through, and I thought I'd touch on some basic things. I plan to be much more organized than this, and then we kind of walked in the door and turned this thing on, so I apologize for that. So there was a conference held, I think it was in the 70s, it was headed up, I believe, by John Collins. And if you've been watching the Dating of Daniel series, you hear me say the name John J. Collins a lot. John Collins, Old Testament scholar, works in the Second Temple period. And so I believe he headed up a conference, Society of Biblical Literature, I think was who it was with. And it was published in a book called, or a publication, 𝀭 14, I think. But again, I think it was in the 70s. Anyway, they got together and came up with a definition of what apocalyptic literature is. So if for those of you that I'm sure everybody has heard of movies like Apocalypse Now or Revelation, or the words can mean a variety of things, but often has the idea of like some terrible cataclysmic event or series of events at the end of time. And so you have the word used, apocalypse, apocalyptic, used in different contexts. We're going to use it very narrowly right now to talk about a genre of literature. And It shows up in Jewish texts, ancient Jewish texts. It shows up in Christian texts. The Book of Revelation, for example, is an apocalyptic text. The Book of Daniel is an apocalyptic text. And so the definition that they came up with, which actually I think it was very good. Apocalypse is a genre of revelatory literature with a narrative framework in which a revelation is mediated by an otherworldly being to a human recipient, disclosing a transcendent reality which is both temporal insofar as it envisages eschatological salvation, and spatial insofar as it involves another supernatural world. So let's kind of break that down so that we can see it. By the way, I just heard Megan come downstairs, so she should be with us shortly. So an apocalypse is revelatory literature. So you have this mediator, usually an angel, that is coming down, and either the person receiving this information, this revelation, is receiving it through a vision or through through a vision. I lost my train of thought. Or a dream. So dream or a vision. And the angel either comes down and gives information directly, or gives the information directly, or interprets the vision or the dream that the person receiving the vision is having. So it requires this otherworldly, this supernatural revelation to come to a recipient, and a mediator of some sort of supernatural mediator, usually an angel, to either explain or to give the information. It is normally a famous person or figure or hero from the past. So in these apocalyptic texts, we have, for example, Daniel. Daniel, the book is purported to have been written in the 6th century BCE. Of course, I'm of the opinion, the majority of scholars, or the consensus opinion, is that it was written during the 2nd century. Obviously, there are people that disagree with that, and that's fine. We're not really here to debate that tonight. But Daniel is this figure that we know is being spoken of, or is he's the one that's receiving this revelation, even though it's being written hundreds of years after he is supposed to have lived. And this is to give the message clout. It's to give it authenticity. It's to give it the force of I can't think of the word that I'm trying to. Anyway, it gives it clout. It gives it credibility. So some of the famous heroes that come from the past: Daniel, Abraham, Adam. We're going to see tonight Enoch. Who else do I have here? Ezra, Elijah. We have apocalypses from these famous heroes from the past. I'm going to make a little adjustment here so that Megan can also talk. Let us know if the audio is not up to snuff.
Yeah, I talk a lot more quietly than Josh, so it's going to be a little bit of a dip.
I'm going to point the microphone at her a little more. So, I was just going through.
We have the great Atuin watching. I'm sorry. It's a book reference from my favorite ever series. Favorite ever book series. It's a great name. Sorry. I saw that and I was like, yes, Discworld. I'm going to stop interrupting now.
What the heck are you even talking about?
I'm not sure.
Gosh. So, apocalypses are revelations, supernatural revelations given by a supernatural mediator, usually an angel. It involves the recipient is normally a famous hero from the past. And there are two aspects. By the way, if you want a good summary, I'm pulling a lot of this information from there just because it was gathered there really nicely. Mitchell Reddish edited a volume. It's it's 1990, but it's still really good. Apocalyptic literature, a reader. It's a good introduction to the apocalyptic genre, and so a lot of this information you can get there. But he talks about there are two aspects, two types, I guess, of apocalypses that generally show up. One deals with the otherworldly, like an otherworldly journey. So the person that's receiving the revelation goes on a trip outside of this world, goes to visit heaven or hell, or the far-flung reaches of the earth that nobody's ever traveled to, distant stars, these sorts of things. So that's one type of apocalypse, and that reveals to the audience that there's this world outside of what they see, this reality outside of what they see. The other type is the historical, more eschatological, end times dealing with, or type of apocalypse that either will describe events that are coming in human history in the future. These are what's called the ex eventu, the after the fact prophecies. So Daniel, for example, is an example of this. So Daniel writes, the book is compiled in the 2nd century, but the way that the way the text is written, it's supposed to have been written back during the Neo-Babylonian and the Achaemenid empires, and it predicts the coming empires. So the Persian period is going to come when it was just Neo-Babylonian, and then following this, the Greeks will come, and then of course chapters 10 through 12, particularly chapter 11, lay out in great detail all these events that are supposed to happen in the future, and of course these are written after the fact. So you have this sort of again, this prophetic laying out what's coming, and that gives it credibility. But then you also have, perhaps its main purpose is to talk about what's coming in the immediate future. So if you look at the book of Daniel, I keep going back to that, but it's just a good example that most people know. The book of Daniel, when you look at each of the visions in 7, 8, 9 is a little more hazy, but and then 10 through 12, you have this period, this culmination of the true, the godly empire that's going to come and wipe out, destroy, take over the earth and set all things right. And so often in these apocalyptic texts, you have this history that's leading up to this point where all these terrible things are going to happen, this persecution is going to happen, but the audience is to take heart, because when all these persecutions take place, very soon, God is going to come back and conquer and set all things right for those that are remaining faithful. So that leads me here to a quote here from the reader. Apocalyptic literature is crisis literature. These writings were produced during a time of perceived crisis to offer hope to oppressed and beleaguered individuals by giving them an alternative picture of reality. And this is, so this accounts for both the otherworldly journey type of apocalypse, because it says, hey, things are going really bad right now here on earth, But look, Enoch is going on a trip, and Enoch is taken up into heaven, and Enoch is taken to the furthermost, parts of the earth. And there's this reality outside of the one that we see. And it's in that reality that it becomes clear that God is in control. And, there are forces at work. It reminds me of, I can't remember if it was Elijah or Elisha. But I think it was Elijah for Elisha's sake. Anyway, I haven't read that section in a while. But he says, let him see the armies of heaven, let him see what's around us that's protecting us. And, God allows the armies to be revealed, and it's to bolster, like, hey, there's this other dimension. Dimension might not be the right word, but there's this unseen reality that gives confidence to the people that are going through this crisis or this suffering to take heart. God is in control, and ultimately He is going to set things right. In the historical type of apocalypse, the audience can take heart that, first of all, the crisis that they're going through has been predicted in the past in great detail, often. And so God is in control in that sense, because this is no surprise to Him. And secondly, following this crisis very soon will be deliverance. God is going to come back and deliver. So last thing that I'll say by way of introduction is, what are the apocalypses, the Jewish apocalypses that we're talking about? Which texts fit that category? I am back in Reddish's reader, and the ones that are listed out, we're going to be looking at one tonight. We're going to start looking at one tonight, the Book of Enoch. And you have several different separate apocalypses that were brought together in the Book of Enoch. So the Book of the Watchers, the Heavenly Luminaries, the Animal Apocalypse, the Apocalypse of Weeks. But you also have the Book of Jubilees, part of the Book of Jubilees, the Testament of Levi, the Testament of Abraham. I won't read all these out, but there's you can see there are definite Jewish apocalyptic texts that fit that definition, that fit that genre. And of course, genre is a very can be a difficult thing to determine, because genre is often very fluid, and so not all of those things that we described fit each of the texts. It's more of a constellation of characteristics that fit these texts, and those are sort of the major ones that we go to. So I want to, just before we start reading, to give the audience, if they want more information on apocalyptic literature, I just wanted to show you guys some books. I showed you the one there. That's a nice introduction as a reader. This is John Collins' Apocalyptic Imagination. Fantastic book, relatively recent. Let's say it's latest editions, 2016. But a fantastic layout, not only of a good introduction to apocalyptic literature, but goes through many of the texts that fit apocalyptic, the apocalyptic genre. Slightly dated, but still fantastic book, still cited. Stephen Cook, who's a great scholar that actually we're going to have come on the channel. He's at Virginia Theological Seminary, but he wrote an excellent book, the Apocalyptic Literature, and excellent. His argument in the book is that apocalyptic literature is written to be, I think this is something that most people would agree on, written to be ambiguous, and not so that it's not able to be definitively tied to a particular event. It's written specifically enough.
It's like a modern horoscope.
Yes.
It's specific enough that you can tie it to events that you're living through, but it's general enough that really it applies to everyone.
Yep, that's right. He also wrote Prophecy and Apocalypticism, talking about the social setting of apocalyptic texts. Just a couple of more. Yeah, that's a good book. I'll mention it here. And this was, I believe, just trying to remember. Yeah, these are just the ones that I have in print. There are a bunch of others that I can recommend that I have like on Kindle. But Apocalypse, Prophecy, and Pseudepigraphy. Another excellent book by John Collins.
We should write to John Collins and say thank you.
Yeah,
we bought everything you've ever written.
He really is an excellent scholar in the field. I feel like we should probably... Yeah, sorry.
So, alkyl dimethyl benzyl ammonium chloride, I hope I pronounced that right, says, why doesn't the Christian community talk about or recognize the ex post facto nature of the apocalyptica? And that is a $5 super chat. Thank you. I don't know.
Yeah, what's interesting, and you'll see this, I think tonight, if you haven't read through apocalyptic literature, you'll see that these texts are often, they're not in the Protestant canon, and yet there are so many similarities in these texts. For example, between what we're reading tonight, Enoch, and the book of Daniel, you see definite correlations there, similarities there. It's the same genre of text, and yet oftentimes there's no problem saying, oh no, Enoch is pseudepigraphal. It's that's not real. It's not really written by, or these weren't visions by Enoch. Right? Sorry, I got a squeeze of the leg, which may indicate that I should stop talking.
It means you should stop picking my
nails. Stop picking my nails. Yes. I will also stop talking.
We have a £5 patron. £5, sorry, I am very tired. Super chat from Elord Chess, who says, this is the first time watching us live. Hi. Hello.
Awesome.
It's nice to have you with us. I hope you enjoy it. We tend to be a little bit rambly, but I hope you have fun. And there was one more from Bobby, who says that we are the Stiller and Mera of Assyriology. I don't know who those are, but thank you. And Tim Smith says that Josh is better than Stiller, so thank you.
I think those are the people that did the Who's On First, What's On Second.
I don't know what that is.
I'm just kidding.
Okay. Yeah, I do.
Sorry.
So hello, everyone. Sorry I was late. I was putting Oliver into bed. But it's nice to see you all. It's been a while.
Indeed. All right. So I think that what we'll do is, if you're okay with it, we will start to read through the book of Enoch. So Enoch... How do I give an introduction to that? Enoch is composed of 5-6 different individual texts that were brought together. I'll just read here from, I think, is this by Nicholsburg? Sorry. Yes. Yeah, Nicholsburg and Vanderkam. This is their, in the Hermania series. That's something I should show you. This monumental work by George Nicholsburg in the Hermania series on, this is the first part of First Enoch. Sorry. It's brilliant and obviously very well researched, incredibly thorough. He also has a translation in the Hermania series just on First Enoch, so you don't, it gives a brief introduction and then it gives his translation of the text. But here from his introduction, the Book of the Watchers, chapters 1 to 36, the Book of Parables, 37 to 71, the Book of the Luminaries, 72 to 82, the Dream Visions, 83 to 90, the Epistle of Enoch, 91 to 105, the Birth of Noah, chapters 106 and 107, and then another book of Enoch, chapter 108. And he says, overall, they express a common worldview that characterizes this present world as evil and unjust, and in need of divine adjudication and renewal. And this is, just sort of standard.
We had a quick question before we started.
Oh, sure.
That is probably useful. When was Enoch written? Do we know?
Yeah, so the different parts date to different periods. Can't remember what the earliest is, but essentially Jewish apocalyptic literature goes from like 3rd century BCE, so early Hellenistic, middle Hellenistic, whatever, through I think the 2nd century CE. So it would have predated, early apocalyptic predates Daniel, but different parts. But you know what? Let me just look at his introduction here, because I think he goes through some of them at least. The Book of the Watchers. The Book of the Watchers probably took its present form by the mid or late 3rd century BCE. Book of the Parables. The Parables can be dated sometime around the turn of the era. The reference to the Parthians and the Medes in 56 may refer to an invasion in 40 BCE. Let's see. In its present form, he's talking here about the dream visions. In its present form, the vision dates from the time of Judas Maccabeus, between 164 and 160 BCE, although the parallel passage in 96 to 19 may indicate an earlier date around 200 BCE. So you can see, the different parts that were brought together originally would have. It's a little like the Book of Daniel. I would say probably consensus view, at least majority scholarship view. The earlier chapters that are primarily in Aramaic would date to maybe early Hellenistic period, whereas the visions in 7 to 12 would date to 2nd century, but they were brought together by a later compiler. So right, would you like me to begin reading?
Sure.
All right, so the Book of Enoch. Enoch, of course, if you recall, you see him in the Book of Genesis. You also see him, of course, in like the Book of Jude. But in the New Testament, Enoch is the one that walked with God, and he was not, because he was taken. And so, like so many texts in the Second Temple period, you have a development of portions of Genesis. You're going to see that here in the Book of Enoch. So, the Book of the Watchers, chapters 1 to 36. Here we go. The words of the blessing with which Enoch blessed the righteous chosen, who will be present in the day of tribulation, to remove all the enemies, and the righteous will be saved. And he took up his discourse and said, Enoch, a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by God, who had the vision of the Holy One and of heaven, which he showed me. From the words of the watchers and holy ones I heard everything. And as I heard everything from them, I also understood what I saw. Not for this generation do I expound, but concerning one that is distant I speak. And that's very, very important. And concerning the chosen I speak now, and concerning them I take up my discourse. So if you remember, Enoch is writing in a period that's, before the nation of Israel is formed. This is when, God has not yet, selected his chosen nation. And so Enoch represents great antiquity. It's, not to the, it's not to the discrediting, I don't know what else to say, of Moses, for example, but it's just an ancient figure that gives credibility in a much broader sense, perhaps, to this text. So, The great Holy One will come forth from his dwelling. And you'll hear, if you know the biblical text, you'll hear many parallels here. He will come forth from his dwelling, and the eternal God will tread from thence upon Mount Sinai. He will appear with his army. He will appear with his mighty host from the heaven of heavens. All the watchers will fear and quake. All those who are hiding in all the ends of the earth will sing. All the ends of the earth will be shaken, and trembling and great fear will seize them, the watchers, unto the ends of the earth. The high mountains will be shaken and fall and break apart, and the high hills will be made low and melt like wax before the fire. The earth will be wholly rent asunder, and everything on the earth will perish, and there will be judgment on all. With the righteous he will make peace, and over the chosen there will be protection, and upon them will be mercy. They will all be God's, and he will grant them his good pleasure. He will bless them all, and he will help them all. Light will shine upon them, and he will make peace with them. Look, he comes with the myriad of his holy ones, to execute judgment on all, and to destroy all the wicked, and to convict all humanity, for all the wicked deeds that they have done, and the proud and hard words that wicked sinners spoke against him. Chapter 2. Contemplate all his works, and observe the works of heaven, how they do not alter their paths, and the luminaries of heaven, that they all rise and set, each one ordered in its appointed time, and they appear on their feasts, and do not transgress their own appointed order. Observe the earth, and contemplate the works that take place on it, from the beginning until the consummation, that nothing on earth changes, but all the works of God are manifest to you. You hear this sort of thing in the Psalms, for example. Look at the way nature takes its course, and look at how things operate and move in a consistent pattern. So notice that here in the creation. Observe the signs, verse 3, of summer and winter. Contemplate the signs of winter, that all the earth is filled with water, and clouds and dew and rain rest upon it. Chapter 3. Contemplate and observe how all the trees are withered, and how all their leaves are stripped, except 14 trees that are not stripped, which remain with the old until the new comes after 2 or 3 years. Observe the signs of summer, whereby the sun burns and scorches, and you seek shelter and shade from its presence, and the earth burns with scorching heat, and you are unable to tread on the dust or the rock because of the burning. Contemplate all the trees. Their leaves blossom green on them, and they cover the trees, and all their fruit is for glorious honor. Contemplate all these works, and understand that he who lives for all the ages made all these works. And his works take place from year to year, and they all carry out their works for him, and their works do not alter, but they all carry out his word. Observe how in like manner the sea and the rivers carry out and do not alter their works from his words. But you have not stood firm, nor acted according to his commandments. But you have turned aside, you have spoken proud and hard words with your unclean mouth against his majesty. Heart of heart, there will be no peace for you. Then you will curse your days, and the years of your life will perish, and the years of your destruction will increase in an eternal curse, and there will be no mercy or peace for you. Then you will leave your names as an eternal curse for all the righteous, and by you all who curse will curse, and all the sinners and wicked will swear by you, but all the chosen will rejoice. And for them there will be forgiveness of sins, and all mercy and peace and clemency. For them there will be salvation, a good light, and they will inherit the earth. But for all you sinners there will be no salvation, but on all of you a curse will abide. For the chosen there will be light and joy and peace, and they will inherit the earth. But for you wicked there will be a curse. Wisdom will be given to all the chosen, and they will all live, and they will sin no more through godlessness and pride. In the enlightened man there will be light, and in the wise man understanding, and they will transgress no more, nor will they sin all the days of their life, nor will they die in the heat of God's wrath. But the number of the days of their life they will contemplate, and their life will grow in peace, and the years of their joy will increase in rejoicing in eternal peace all the days of their life. So that's closes chapter 5. That's an introduction, and you can hear this indictment of the wicked. But again, the I suspect what will be the true audience here, or the primary audience, are those that are the chosen, the ones that are the righteous. Even though the text has the second person you. The indictment, of course, is against those that are not part of the community, not part of the chosen. Anyway, so that's the introduction. Now, starting in chapter 6, this may be why you guys have stayed tuned in. I'm not sure. Perhaps it's for our amazing good looks. I don't know. Okay, sorry.
When the sons of men had multiplied, in those days beautiful and comely daughters were born to them. And the watchers, the sons of heaven, saw them and desired them. And they said to one another, Come, let us choose for ourselves wives from the daughters of men, and let us beget children for ourselves. And Shemihazar, their chief, said to them, I fear that you will not want to do this deed, and I alone shall be guilty of a great sin.
So if you recognize what this is developing, this is the pre-flood story, right? If you go back to Genesis 6, you see the sons of God, daughters of men, they're choosing wives. This is, development. There are debates about, is Genesis borrowing from Enoch? Is Enoch borrowing from Genesis? That's not something we need to talk about at the moment. Lisa for Truth, just really quick, she said, is this all written in the Maccabean period? No, this portion was probably written 3rd century, so slightly before the Maccabean period. But some of Enoch was. So.
And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and let us all bind one another with a curse, that none of us turn back from this counsel until we fulfill it and do this deed. Then they all swore together and bound one another with a curse. And they were, all of them, 200, who descended in the days of Jared onto the peak of Mount Hermon. And they called the mountain Hermon because they swore and bound one another with a curse on it. And these are the names of their chiefs. I'm not going to read the names of the chiefs, but there are 20 of them.
Heck yes, there are.
These and all the others with them took for themselves wives from among them such as they chose. And they began to go into them, and to defile themselves through them, and to teach them sorcery and charms, and to reveal to them the cutting of roots and plants.
So let me just, if I can I just read Genesis, this portion of Genesis 6? Just pull it up here, just so you can hear the comparison. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them that they chose. So, this is, just that small section there, but this is developing, this story. So, anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
And they conceived from them, and bore to them great giants. And the giants begot Nephilim, and to the Nephilim were born Eliud. And they were growing in accordance with their greatness.
So, then the Lord said, verse 3 of Genesis 6, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. So you can hear the intertextuality. Yeah, you can. And this would be, considered more direct intertextuality. But if you want more information on that, you should go watch Megan's videos. Third one's coming out soon, right?
Next week.
Aw, snizzle, my mizzle.
Providing I finish the script.
Heck yes, you will. Sorry.
Yeah, I hope I do. They were devouring the labor of all the sons of men, and men were not able to supply them. And the giants began to kill men and to devour them. And they began to sin against the birds and beasts and creeping things and the fish, and to devour one another's flesh. And they drank the blood. That took a dark turn. I've not actually read Enoch before, so this is an educational experience. Then the earth brought accusation against the lawless ones. Azael taught men to make swords of iron and weapons and shields and breastplates and every instrument of war. He showed them metals of the earth and how they should work gold to fashion it suitably, and concerning silver to fashion it for bracelets and ornaments for women. And he showed them concerning antimony and eye paint, and all manner of precious stones and dyes. And the sons of men made them for themselves and for their daughters, and they transgressed and led the holy ones astray. And there was much godlessness on the earth, and they made their ways desolate. Shemi-Hazar taught spells and the cutting of roots. Hermani taught sorcery for the loosing of spells and magic and skill. Barakel taught the signs of the lightning flashes. Kokabel taught the signs of the stars. Zekel taught the signs of the shooting stars. Artakof taught the signs of the earth. Shamsiel taught the signs of the sun. Sahriel taught the signs of the moon. And they all began to reveal mysteries to their wives and to their children.
So, one of the things that you see in ancient Near Eastern texts in general is this hidden wisdom. And I mean, you see it also in, oh boy, if I can dig this out, I'm good. The guy that got eaten by the birds in Greek mythology.
He had his liver torn out by vultures. No, an eagle. It wasn't Prometheus.
Yes.
It was Prometheus.
Prometheus.
Good. There we go.
But this idea of the hidden wisdom of the gods, the supernatural wisdom.
Actually, Nick J just said so. Could one say that the Watchers are the Hebrew version of Prometheus?
Oh,
one could say
snap.
that. One could.
Come on, son. What was I saying? It took all my mental energy, I guess.
Prometheus.
Yeah. So, this is what's happening here. Now there are two different strands. Two different strands here. You're going to see it. Remember, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to bring it up. Anyway, but this is what's happening is the angels, one of the things that they're doing besides polluting, mankind by doing, this sexual relations with humanity, but they're also teaching them these wisdom. These ancient.
It sounds like divination.
Yeah, that's right. And things that mankind isn't ready for, right? Isn't supposed to have. So, anyway.
And as men were perishing, the cry went up to heaven. Then Michael and Sariel and Raphael and Gabriel looked down from the sanctuary of heaven upon the earth and saw much bloodshed on the earth.
By the way, that was supposed to be the 4 Ninja Turtles, those 4, but they changed it at the last second.
Yes. All the earth was filled with the godlessness and violence that had befallen it.
I guess you can't picture somebody named Gabriel going.
I said Gabriel, didn't I?
That's all right. Cowabunga. Gabriel can't really say cowabunga. I mean, I guess Michelangelo can.
Yeah, we could do that.
I guess you could call him Gabby, because you call him Mikey.
That's true.
You know what? I'm just going to be quiet now.
We should move on. And entering in, they said to one another, the earth, devoid of inhabitants, raises the voice of their cries to the gates of heaven. And now to us, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men make suit, saying, bring in our judgment to the Most High, and our destruction before the glory of the Majesty, before the Lord of all lands in majesty. And approaching, they said to the Lord of the ages, you are the God of gods, and Lord of lords, and King of kings, and God of the ages. And the throne of your glory exists for every generation of the generations that are from old.
I'll be right back, sorry.
Okay. I'd say he's leaving you in good hands, but I have no idea what I'm talking about. So we're just going to keep reading Enoch. And then hopefully Josh will get back before something exciting happens. We'll see. And now I've lost my place. For you have made all things and have authority over all, and all things are manifest and uncovered before you, and you see all things, and there is nothing that can be hidden from you. You see what Azael has done, who has taught all iniquity on the earth, and has revealed the eternal mysteries that are in heaven, which the sons of men were striving to learn. And what Shemi-Hazah has done, to whom you gave authority to rule over them who are with him. And they have gone in to the daughters of the men of earth, and they have lain with them, and have defiled themselves with the women. And they have revealed to them all sins, and have taught them to make hate-inducing charms. And now look, the daughters of men have borne sons from them, giants, half-breeds. And the blood of men is shed on the earth, and the whole earth is filled with iniquity. And now look, the spirits of the souls of the men who have died make suit, and their groan has come up to the gates of heaven, and it does not cease to come forth from the presence of the iniquities that have come upon the earth. You know all things before they happen, and you see these things, and you permit them, and you do not tell us what we ought to do to them with regard to these things. So I'm going to take a break, because it's reading this for the first time. It's interesting to me that the angels have come down and are teaching all of this hidden knowledge to men, and it's apparently roundly condemned by God. But in the Babylonian tradition, there's a story of the 7 sages who are kind of like fishmen, like mermaids, but they're actually just men wearing fish costumes. We've got little statues of them. They look pretty cool. They're like fish heads going down, and then tails, and then a little man's face kind of peeking out. But they're not angels, but they are the beings responsible in some Babylonian traditions for teaching, bringing wisdom to humanity, which is pretty cool. And they're not bad guys, though, but apparently the angels here are bad guys. And we have people asking why the angels are male. I don't know. I'd say because of the patriarchy, but I don't know if that's the actual answer or if that's just me being funny. Raphael Block, aren't there other stories about gods teaching things to humans, including fire? Yep, that would be Prometheus. He wasn't a god, he was a titan, but yeah, big mythical dude. Who steals fire from the gods and brings it to humanity. And in other Mesopotamian stories about Ea or Enki, who is the god of wisdom, who teaches humans, or like tells humans how to do things like avoid the flood, and like solve problems that are like solve plagues that are inflicted on them by other gods. So yeah, it's definitely not an isolated trope, as it were. Ben Lamoureux, yes, Apkallu. The fish guys, the 7 sages, are called Apkallu, and they're pretty cool, and I like them. I especially like the fish heads. You should just Google them. There are some great pictures out there. Right. So we are now on chapter 10. Then the Most High declared, we're going to get God's response now. And the Great Holy One spoke. And he sent Sariel to the son of Lamach, saying, Go to Noah and say to him in my name, hide yourself. Noah's arrived. Hooray, Noah. And reveal to him that the end is coming, that the whole earth will perish. And tell him that a deluge is about to come on the whole earth and destroy everything on the earth. Teach the righteous one what he should do, the son of Lamech how he may preserve himself alive and escape forever. From him a plant will be planted, and his seed will endure for all the generations of eternity. To Raphael he said, Go, Raphael, and bind Azael hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the wilderness that is in Dudael. Throw him there, and lay beneath him sharp and jagged stones, and cover him with darkness, and let him dwell there for an exceedingly long time. Cover up his face, and let him not see the light. And on the day of the great judgment he will be led away to the burning conflagration. and heal the earth, which the watchers have desolated, and announce the healing of the earth, that the plague may be healed, and all the sons of men may not perish because of the mystery that the watchers told and taught their sons. And all the earth was made desolate by the deeds of the teaching of Azael, and over him write all the sins.
How is it?
I'm confused.
Yeah.
We've got to God's judging stuff, sending people to Noah.
Awesome.
Yeah. We talked about the Apkalu, fish sages. Yeah.
Fish sages.
Fish sages.
Phages. You want me to read for a while?
Yeah, please.
And to Gabriel he said, Go, Gabriel, to the bastards, to the half-breeds, to the sons.
Miscegenation.
Oh. Miscegenation. It's a word that I use every Thursday. To the sons of miscegenation, and destroy the sons of the watchers from among the sons of men. Send them against one another in a war of destruction. Length of days they will not have, and no petition will be granted to their fathers in their behalf, that they should expect to live an everlasting life, nor even that each of them should live 500 years. I mean, you don't live 500 years, what are you? Gracious.
Exactly.
And to Michael he said, Go, Michael, bind Shemichaza and the others with him, who have mated with the daughters of men, so that they were defiled by them in their uncleanness. And when their sons perish, and they see the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, until the day of their judgment and consummation, until the everlasting judgment is consummated. Then they will be led away to the fiery abyss, and to the torture, and to the prison where they will be confined forever. And everyone who is condemned and destroyed henceforth will be bound together with them until the consummation of their generation. And at the time of the judgment, which I shall judge, they will perish for all generations. Destroy all the spirits of the half-breeds and the sons of the watchers, because they have wronged men. Destroy all perversity from the face of the earth, and let every wicked deed be gone. And let the plant of righteousness and truth appear, and it will become a blessing. And the deeds of righteousness and truth will be planted forever with joy. And now all the righteous will escape, and they will live until they beget thousands, and all the days of their youth and their old age will be completed in peace. Then all the earth will be tilled in righteousness, and all of it will be planted with trees and filled with blessing. And all the trees of joy will be planted on it, and they will plant vines on it, and every vine that will be planted on it will yield 1,000 jugs of wine. And of every seed that is sown on it, each measure will yield 1,000 measures. And each measure of olives will yield 10 baths of oil. Cleanse the earth from all impurity, from all wrong, and from all lawlessness, and from all sin, and godlessness, and all impurities that have come upon the earth remove. And all the sons of men will become righteous, and all the peoples will worship me, and all will bless me and prostrate themselves. And all the earth will be cleansed from all defilement and from all uncleanness. And I shall not again send upon them any wrath or scourge for all the generations of eternity. Then I shall open the storehouses of blessing that are in heaven, and make them descend upon the earth, upon the works and the labor of the sons of men. And then truth and peace will be united together for all the days of eternity, and for all the generations of humanity.
We have a couple of questions, if we can take a quick break there. Analysis says a couple of names of the leaders mentioned Daniel and Ezekiel. Are they any relations to the Book of Daniel and Book of Ezekiel?
I don't want to answer without doing a bit of reading.
There we go. Magnus Thirup Hansen, when calling God the God of gods, does that imply that the tradition Enoch is written in acknowledges the existence of more gods than Yahweh?
I'd have to look at the way that it's constructed, but I suspect it's the same sort of construction. X singular of X plural often means just the greatest. I don't know that it necessitates, I don't know that it has in mind a plurality. I mean, but certainly, you know, if the question is, did they recognize other deities? Yes. I mean, I don't, certainly not my field, but I mean, certainly not my area of the field, but yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Sorry. Where did it go? Right. Why bury the bad dudes only to be burned later? Why not put them directly into the fire now? Is this where the Christian idea of a fiery hell came from?
I mean, it's probably more complicated than just here that it comes from, but actually, this is probably something to do a video on. This is sort of the apocalyptic literature is sort of this liminal space. See how I use that? Liminal. Between what we normally do and stuff that that's usually too late for us to get into, but it like draws us into it. Like, hey, this could lead you into talking about resurrection. Apocalyptic literature has resurrection. You can talk about that. Yeah, okay. So anyway, but yeah, maybe that's something we'll do.
Talk about all the things. People are putting "Oh brother, we're out there" quotes in the side chat because of the miscegenation.
Oh right. Where was that in the movie?
It's the interracial marriages and
you
boys as miscegenated. Yeah, so No Name says, I thought you was turned into a horny toad.
We thought you was a toad. I never was no toad. Now I want to... Any of you boys, Smithies? Or if not Smithies per se.
Sorry, trained in the metallurgical arts.
Oh, gosh.
Do you want me to take a turn or are you good?
I can keep going a little bit. Cool. So we are in chapter 12, 12 through 16.
Sorry, Shannon G just asked if the translation we're reading is available online. None of the translations she can find are a close match and she wants to read along. I don't think so. This is a relatively recent publication. And I don't know enough about Enoch to suggest.
If you Google...
Excuse me.
Trying to get back to the cover page. So it's George Nicholsberg and James Vanderkam, but it's First Enoch in the Hermenia series, and it's the Hermenia translation. Let me just put it up here because a lot of those words that I just said probably... Yeah. So I don't know. I'll leave that up further for 3 more seconds so you can see it. But that's what we're reading from. I don't know if they made a PDF available online or anything. You could obviously just buy the Kindle version. And I'm hot in here. Okay. So chapter 12. Before these things, Enoch was taken, and no human being knew where he had been taken, or where he was, or what had happened. What had happened was... So let me read to you from Genesis 5. Oops. So starting in verse 18 of Genesis 5, when Jared, if you remember that name, had lived 162 years, he became the father of Enoch. After he became the father of Enoch, Jared lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Jared lived a total of 962 years, and then he died. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. After he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked faithfully with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch lived a total of 365 years. Interestingly enough, there are interesting comparisons to the Sumerian king list here, but nonetheless, Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away. So, somewhat cryptic statement.
Dun dun dun.
Developed here in First Enoch. His works were with the watchers, and with the holy ones were his days. So what happened to him? We're getting ready to see.
Is there a fiery chariot?
Swing low.
With wheels and wheels.
That turn in every direction,
Mm-hmm.
whichever the face is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I, Enoch, was standing, blessing the Lord of majesty, the King of the ages. And look, the watchers of the great Holy One called me, Enoch the scribe, and said to me, Enoch, righteous scribe, go and say to the watchers of heaven, who forsook the highest heaven, the sanctuary of their eternal station, and defiled themselves with women. As the sons of earth do, so they did, and took wives for themselves, and they worked great desolation on the earth. You will have no peace or forgiveness. And concerning their sons in whom they rejoice, the slaughter of their beloved ones they will see, and over the destruction of their sons they will lament and make perpetual petition, and they will have no mercy or peace. And Enoch, go and say to Azael, you will have no peace. A great sentence has gone forth against you. Sorry, I had to mix that in. Against you, to bind you. You will have no relief or petition, because of the unrighteous deeds that you revealed, and because of all the godless deeds and the unrighteousness and the sin that you revealed to humans. Then I went, Enoch now speaking in the first person, and spoke to all of them together, and they were all afraid and trembling, and fear seized them. And they asked that I write a memorandum of petition for them. He's a scribe, so he can do that. That they might have forgiveness, and that I recite the memorandum of petition for them in the presence of the Lord of heaven. For they were no longer able to speak or to lift their eyes to heaven out of shame for the deeds through which they had sinned and for which they had been condemned. Then I wrote out the memorandum of their petition and the requests concerning themselves with regard to their deeds individually and concerning their sons for whom they were making request, that they might have forgiveness and longevity. And I went off and sat by the waters of Dan in the land of Dan, which is south of Hermon to the west. I recited to God the memorandum of their petition until I fell asleep. And look, dreams came upon me, and visions fell upon me. And I saw visions of wrath, and there came a voice saying, Speak to the sons of heaven to reprimand them. And when I had awakened, I went to them, and all of them were assembled together, and they were sitting and weeping in Avel-Mine, which is in between Lebanon and Senir, covering their faces. And I recited in their presence all the visions that I had seen in the dream, and I began to speak the words of truth, and the vision and reprimand to the watchers of heaven. You want to read a little bit? By the way, 8:39. Mm-hmm. Can probably go another 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
How many people? 63 people watching.
Doing pretty well.
Oh, snap. That was my celebratory raise the roof with one hand because I'm holding my iPad and I'm just going to be quiet.
The book of the words of truth and the reprimand of the watchers who were from old, according to the command of the great Holy One in the dream that I dreamed. In this vision I saw in my dream what I now speak with a human tongue and with the breath of my mouth, which the Great One has given to humans, to speak with them and to understand with the heart. As he created and destined humans to understand the words of knowledge, so he created and destined me to reprimand the watchers, the sons of heaven. I wrote up your petition, and in the vision it was shown to me thus, that you will not obtain your petition for all the days of eternity, but judgment has been consummated in the decree against you, that from now on you will not ascend into heaven for all the ages. And it has been decreed to bind you in bonds in the earth for all the days of eternity. And that before these things you will see the destruction of your sons, your beloved ones, and that you will have no pleasure in them, but they will fall before you by the sword. It's kind of harsh.
Damn.
Accordingly, you will not obtain your petition concerning them, nor concerning yourselves. You will be petitioning and making supplication, but you will not be speaking any word from the writing that I have written. In the vision it was shown to me thus, look, clouds in the vision were summoning me, and mists were crying out to me, and shooting stars and lightning flashes were hastening me and speeding me along, and words in my vision made me fly up and lifted me upward and brought me to heaven. And I went in until I drew near to a wall built of hailstones.
So here we are, right? We're doing the otherworldly journey. Sorry, I just saw the super chat by Tommy Thomas for $5. Thank you, Tommy. He says, "Behold!"
Kine!
From what's the atheist channel? Milwaukee Atheist, right? Behold!
I've never ever watched any other YouTube show, ever.
I was on it.
I didn't watch it.
See, that's wrong. You hear what I'm saying? That's wrong.
I don't watch YouTube.
I don't like you, Josh. I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
I do like you. I don't have time to watch YouTube. I'm the worst YouTube creator because I don't watch my friends' stuff. That's fair.
That was from me to you.
That's fair. I also don't watch my husband's stuff.
She doesn't even listen to me when I talk.
I do listen to you when you talk.
Just not to other people.
Well, not when you talk to Skylar. Sorry.
Damn. You're in verse 9.
I know, but there was a thing I wanted to say about Hine.
We always translated it behold and...
So when I took Hebrew, and when Josh took Hebrew with Dr. Ted Lewis at Johns Hopkins, you get told, there's the Hebrew word Hine is usually translated behold, because how the hell do you translate that in English? But if you do that, you get told off. So, Of course, some unnamed grad students made a point of translating it behold every single time.
I think the best, we took Ezekiel with Ted Lewis, and it was amazing because
I had Ezekiel with him as well.
In Hebrew, there's a curse formula. And basically it starts off with the word if, and it says, if, I go back on my word, and that's it. Like there's nothing else after it. And
there's no consequences.
There's an assumed, it's like, it's assumed that if I do this, then all these curses will befall me, right? So, we always, if you translate it woodenly, it's if I go back on my word.
Full stop.
Right. So Caleb, my really good friend from Hopkins, he translated it one time and it just stuck because it was such a wonderful way to translate it. He came around to him and he came to it and he said, "I'll be damned if I'll go back on my word." And it was just so beautiful. And everybody laughed. And of course, that became the way that you translated it every time. I'll be damned. Oh, I'll be damned.
So I'm actually scrolling through. We don't have a natural stopping place.
In NSP?
For a little bit.
Okay. Well, maybe this is a good place to pause then for the time being. How are you guys? Give me some feedback real quick. Give us some feedback. How are you liking this? Is this something we should continue reading through this apocalyptic stuff, reading through Enoch? Would you prefer that we do more of a selection of text? For example, in the reader, he has a selection where he reads, we'd read the animal apocalypse, which is a part of Enoch. Then we'd read the apocalypse of weeks, which is another part of Enoch. But then we'd read through 4th Ezra. We'd read through 2nd Baruch. Anyway, we could do it that way, where we're not reading the entire book of Enoch, which we can. I have no problem.
People are generally saying that they are enjoying
what
has happened with this.
Okay, very good. We'll just read it then, because I mean it is an important work. There's no question. I just don't want to drag anything out. Well, why don't we stop it here then for tonight? If anybody has any questions in the side chat, Ron too says it's fun, but he prefers Sumerian. I know, it's true. I always prefer Sumerian to everything else. We will get back to Mesopotamian stuff, promise. But I think it's good to go into this.
We're having a couple of people asking us to continue. We're not going to, because Josh actually is going on with Skylar tonight, and I'm kind of sick. So frankly, I'm going to go and lie down.
I think I don't know this.
No, they just mean later.
I think they might mean the next time we do a book club.
Well, we will continue the next time we do a book club. As we say that, someone else says, "Well, I'd rather have selections than discussion."
123 Goober P. Just I'll read this one because I saw the name Aaron White. But reading the selections with discussion on it would be good, as Aaron White would say. Yeah, oh yeah. If you don't know what that is, go watch Skylar Fiction's. Type into YouTube Skylar Fiction. I think if you type in Aaron White, you'll see a little short video. I just play it, but yeah, why not?
Okay.
Nah, it'll probably take too long to figure out how to do that.
Let's just go see Scarlett's channel.
Yeah, just go see Scarlett's
channel. You might
see
something you like.
Yeah, there you go. And if you come on at 9:30, which is in 45 minutes, you will see me.
Hooray.
So maybe I shouldn't say that, because then they might not tune in.
I think it's safe to assume if they're here still after the last hour, that they'll probably come and see you on Skype.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for joining us. Oh, No Name says, "Get well soon, Megan." Roll Tide. I'm okay. I'm tired, honestly.
What's Roll Tide mean?
I have no idea.
Oh.
But I enjoy the random comments people make. So, wow, I am tired. Sorry. Yes. Thank you all for joining us. This has been fun. I'm sorry.
You guys are amazing.
Had a lot interesting to say.
You have, and you have a soothing voice, which is amazing.
I have a voice.
No, it's soothing.
And I know it's been ages since we've done one of these. I'm sorry. We are trying to get back into the swing of regular live streams. We're editing Josh's Sumerian grammar book and his slavery book, and getting videos done for the kids channel, which is launching in January. So there's a lot of stuff going on, which means honestly by the time we get to 7:30 and the kids are in bed, I just want to sit down and collapse, which is what I'm going to go and do.
Oh, Math Pig just put in the side chat Aaron White's discussion. There's a really short video that we pulled from it. It's not taking it out of context. It's perfectly in context, but essentially Skylar asks the question, like he always asks, what do you think of God's command to
kill babies?
Oh, I was going to think of something else to say. And he says, do you think that's right? And he says, and it's not only right, it's more than right. I would do it if I were commanded to. Yeah. And Skylar says, you would do that if God commanded you? And he says, yeah. Oh, yeah. So it was a little disconcerting.
Yep.
Anyway. On that note, guys, thank you so much for watching, all 61 of you that are still here. And we love you guys. It's fantastic having you here.
It is.
It is. And thank you so much for all the super chats. You guys are phenomenal. If you haven't hit the like button, please do so. If you haven't subscribed, love to have you subscribe and hit the bell.
Yep.
That's right. Ring my bell. You feel me? All right. That's all I got. All right, you want to take us out?
Yes. Until next time, resist poor scholarship. I forgot our tagline. That's appalling. Always ask, how do you know that?
Good night, guys.
Night.